I'm Jen Renshaw. I'm incoming president of AMA Nashville chapter, and also founder and CEO of Brandmark Digital, which is a digital marketing and branding agency here in Nashville. So I'm going to be your moderator today, and I do say moderator because this is not going to be a me giving you a lecture type of event at all. It's going to be simply me moderating a conversation amongst all of you to share ideas and suggestions and just let everybody know what you've been doing since the pandemic hit, how it's changed your marketing strategy, where you've gone in terms of your digital pieces to that strategy, and we'll just dive right in. So my first question, I guess, is overall big picture, how has everyone changed their strategies due to COVID, whether that's for your company or if you're an agency for your clients? Any of those are fine. And note which industry you're in as well. I have a feeling it's going to be very different based off of industries. Did anybody go back and review their annual plans and overhaul them? What was your first plan of attack once you figured out, okay, this really is serious and is going to change the way that we work?
Well, I can speak for my experience in working with Nissan and just how things kind of escalated there. So probably the last week in March, we went from our regular, and this is the regular social media calendar. In the automotive world, the New York Auto Show got canceled. So that was like huge and really impacted everything. And so for 2 weeks, we stopped everything that had been planned and scheduled to be posted for social, and they went dark for a week. And then
how did that go? For a week.
Yeah, so it was we went weekly creative reviews all the way up to the VP of marketing on every piece of content for every social channel. I was working on Nissan trucks, so all their channels and all that content, and then even globally, it was like piece by piece, the content had to be reviewed and had to be approved, like several layers up. And then the messaging went from that to no content, like totally dark for a couple of weeks. And then there wasn't any messaging around driving cars or going anywhere. So the messaging shifted to what was happening then is reflecting on the economy. And so the messaging was like the financing department, financing offers, and like contact your local dealership or contact the financial department to see how we can help you. And so the messaging went into that. And then it went into all the paid media was canceled. So like all the paid media basically through like almost the end of the year has been cut. So you're not going to see
my follow-up question actually is around budget.
Yeah, you're not going to see any commercials.
Budget. And
where
did those changes come in?
Yeah, and now it's gone to all organic, no paid. So
okay.
So my friend still works for Chiat, which is their agency out of New York, and the content they're creating is like these beautiful emotional videos around people using their vehicles in like little parades around the neighborhood and posting signs, and how people are using their vehicles to deliver products to people that in need, and how people are using they're like, park it at home is kind of the big message. How they're using, like how people are using their vehicles during this, and highlighting that. So they're spending a lot of production money on these videos, and it's all organic, so they're not putting paid behind it.
Okay. What
And
was the
so,
reasoning behind that? So is it strictly a budget issue?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
was it-
all the production has shut down, in all the plants. So
Got it.
yeah, so and they're limiting, they're cutting, even on the agency side. They're on a hiring freeze, as far as even, getting into another agency. So yeah, things are not looking good for the automotive industry and spending. Um,
What other industries do you guys have that have a different experience in terms of pivoting your strategy?
I think for us in the logistics and warehousing space, we relied heavily on trade shows. So now we have a lot of those associations we're with said, well, if you can't make the new trade show date that is tentative because we don't know if and when they will really be back, they're allowing us to move those funds into digital ads on their newsletters and kind of going that direction. So that's one way we're pivoting more towards digital than just strictly organic, which is where we've typically been. We haven't done a lot of paid. So
are there industry, like webinars and things, or are they doing any online summits and conferences? And like, could you do a trade show online? Is that even possible?
Yeah, it's
it
definitely
is
possible.
possible.
Yeah.
We have one that's supposed to come up in 2 weeks. And they're like, yeah, we're doing a virtual thing. I'm like, okay, can you get me some information? They're like, we'll have more information as it gets closer. And I'm like, you're 2 weeks away. We don't know how this is going to work. So, we probably had 18 to 20 shows in our list of shows that we were going to go to this year. And
So did you move your full event budget into paid ads?
we did not.
Or did you slash some of it as well?
We slashed a lot of it. We took a big hit in March and April with home delivery. People don't want furniture being delivered into folks' homes, and then people aren't buying furniture to get delivered into people's homes. So we took a big hit there, but things that we had already put money down for, they're allowing us to transition into different types of digital advertising.
Awesome. Anybody else want to share on pivoting strategy or budget?
Oh, I think
And if you're trying to share, you're on mute.
Check.
There we go. We can hear you.
I've had conversations the last couple of days with healthcare entities who are finding the need to communicate with their audiences in different ways than they have in the past, both about their COVID preparedness and everyday scheduling changes with doctor's office and visits. And it seems like they're being kind of stretched because maybe their system wasn't really set up to communicate that way, especially if it's sort of a holding company that has clinics around the country and trying to keep that local flavor with the national control and using systems that really maybe weren't set up to communicate with that way. And they're also seeing that need to have increased social presence where maybe they didn't in the past. So they're kind of scrambling. I think their first order of business was just to get set up to be able to work remotely, but now they're having to address their clients and clinics in ways that they haven't in the past.
Yeah, one of my clients is a patient communications platform, and they have definitely been hit hard and have been implementing their product at multiple health systems across the country now. And there's their strategy changed because they got so overloaded on having to implement that everywhere that they basically said, stop marketing. We can't get any additional like people right now. We don't have the bandwidth for it. And like, they've been hiring like crazy.
And I think some of these guys are also realizing that every communication is actually it can be viewed as a marketing experience and
Correct.
certainly customer experience. And that maybe historically wasn't how some of this was viewed, like they were in separate buckets, but now it's all one thing.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Anybody else?
I'll add on. So my industry was oil and gas, and I'm not sure, kind of with the COVID news and the new year and things like that, whether you all noticed the gas prices kind of going down in January and then a lot in February. So that industry was actually hit before COVID even really was a thing that we thought was going to be real here. So we were already in a hiring freeze and a spending freeze. So going from all external employer branding and recruitment marketing to that situation, I was already pivoting to internal communications and retention communications and employee engagement, and barely kind of got into that before we had to shift to crisis communications. So kind of wearing all of those hats, and just like what Carlton said, you know, branding and marketing all of a sudden was seen as a way to how do we position our crisis communications or our internal engagement and retention efforts and things like that. Unfortunately, that, you know, the layoffs kind of came anyway. So we you know, kind of barely got our feet under us with a real plan, but budgets were immediately frozen and we went completely to organic, I guess is the word, but it was all really internal focused. A little bit of LinkedIn, but mostly internal focused. So all free avenues, channels to be able to get the message out.
Okay, great.
And so one other interesting twist to this conversation is being, I think, possibly necessitated by the situation with the post office. And I know that not a lot of people are using direct mail, but some, especially in healthcare, you know, because of HIPAA and getting statements to houses are having to look at that. And I don't think the post office will be allowed to fail, but I would anticipate that there might be some changes to their delivery schedule where they're not coming to your house 6 days a week, which honestly, they could come to my house once a month and I'd be okay. But I do think that there's going to be some changes in how people are communicating, you know, in that traditional mode as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely. Obviously, Zoom has taken off and Slack and a bunch of the other tools.
Definitely Amazon and e-commerce is like, I mean, I've been, rather than go to a store, I will order something online.
Yep, same here.
I'll say that our fulfillment business has taken off.
Yeah.
So while our last mile delivery is down, our order fulfillment is just, it's through the roof. It's better than it's ever been.
Wow. I wonder if the retail folks and restaurant industry folks are going to be going to like the fulfillment area. Like that's the new.
I mean, there's a need for it, but two different.
That's a lot of touching stuff.
Yeah.
All right. How about this? Let's talk about opportunities. So did you guys find any kind of opportunities to connect with your target markets due to COVID hitting and you not having the option of some of those traditional things such as events or direct mail or any of those things? If you've pivoted to a more digital approach, what opportunities did you find and how did you capitalize on having that captivated audience at home online?
I think one thing we did, we were hit by the tornado. Our building was hit by the tornado when it came through, and March just felt like one thing after, like one punch after the next. But it gave us an opportunity to have some really thoughtful good quality communications, genuine communications with our clients, updating them about where we're at with things when it comes to the tornado. And since we already had that cadence down, it was easy enough to incorporate some of those communications into like the COVID-19 stuff. So we could talk about them in a very similar way as we talked about the tornado and the damage that we had there and we sustained there. And our crisis response, I think, was, really prepared for the tornado, prepared us for the COVID-19 to make that an easier transition for our clients. So I don't know if that answers your question, but kind of what.
That's great. I mean, we have to use whatever resources we have, right, at our disposal. So using something like a marketing automation tool that you're already having, just pivoting how you're using it and what that message is, how you're communicating it to each of those different audiences, whether that be clients or prospects or partners or employees, whoever, really using those. So are there any new digital tools that anybody didn't have pre-COVID that they then deployed? I know for us, we did a HubSpot implementation for our own company. Go ahead, Kristen.
This isn't going to be anything new to anybody on this call, but our organization had never used video before. And so everything was email communications to our employees. And then they had just, I had introduced them to social media last late summer and fall. So that was very new to them, to even going outside their walls and communicating, revamping their website and really speaking to the potential candidates out there and things like that. So talking to the public was very new to them. And exactly what Emily said, we had the oil and gas crisis, then we had the tornado, then we had COVID. We had been trying to talk to them about using some more internal engagement tools. And finally, it became very clear that the employees were chomping at the bit to see the faces and hear the voices of their leadership, not just read an email that you knew somebody else had sanitized and just, slapped a leader's name on the bottom, kind of a thing. And so being able to put our leaders on camera, speaking from the heart about what they were doing in their area to keep their team safe, or all of us safe, or all of us financially viable, was very impactful. And it was my job working from home to remotely link with them and pre-record these things and then edit them and, help script them and set them up. So we were learning, how do we do audio and lighting and scripting and, camera work and editing and all of that in all these different locations. So that was a new, kind of exciting hurdle that now they have something, that they can use going forward, that we've tested a little bit, and it turns out to receive a really, really positive response from the employees.
Yeah, you make a good point. I've got some friends that are in the video production industry, and yeah, they have really ramped up, and there's definitely opportunities with the video. And I've got a friend that she's a consultant, and she was doing like consulting with podcasts, but now she said she's got a new line of business and just prepping her clients to be video ready, to help with the lighting, to help with like all the things, and doing even like a test for their Zoom calls to prepare them to be, video ready. So that's kind of an interesting point about the video, and I would not even know where to start with like editing and all that. So like definitely people that have those skills are going to be in high demand now.
Right. And because we were in a high spending freeze, we could not hire a company to help do this for us. So it was those of us who had been doing, newsletters and postcards and trade shows and, things like that, mostly written and 3D type of things, all of a sudden having to learn the video space and the space. I was very familiar with the key messaging and interview prepping, but not on camera. That was never kind of my forte. And so I had to really, kind of dig in and learn that. And it's interesting what you just said, because you just sparked a little thing in my mind about I do have a new skill now that I can, that I can promote in myself. But yeah, so most of these folks did not want to be on camera, you know, and so me building up that rapport with them on the other side of the screen where they could look at me and be able to talk to me, and that represented the other 5,000 employees, you know, that type of thing, was really a rewarding experience to help them and laugh with them and get them at ease and help them, you know, cut and start over and, you know, things like that, and really get a quality product was a really enriching, you know, and rewarding time.
How are you proving success to leadership in terms of the pivots that you've made? So Kristen, for example, in that, how are you proving the success of the pivot to your leadership?
At the time that we were half a dozen of them in before I wasn't there anymore, but we were looking at the hits. We were looking at the number of hits. We were not able to share those messages and things like that. So that was the only metric we really had, was how many people logged in. And they would look at unique or total, and then the comments. And so, you know, you could see some videos, you know, just got a ton of positive comments and responses. And I think overall it's the key thing that we were leaning on was not something you could really measure. They felt it, you know, they felt proud of being able to put that information out. They felt encouraged. It was talked about in every other conference call we had all day long. You know, people would refer to and mention this video and that video and that video. So, you know, that the way that the conversation completely shifted to being afraid and feeling isolated to all of a sudden feeling like, oh, there is more going on than I was, and they are on the same page with us, and, you know, kind of in our camp, and, you know, that kind of thing. So I think emotionally was the biggest measurement we used, but you can't really measure that, but we all felt it.
I'll second kind of what Kristen was saying. With our team has been on Teams for a long time, but nobody really used it to the fullest advantage. So I think,
is that what you're talking about?
Microsoft Teams. So we've been on Teams and we've been working it, but now people don't care if, you know, they're in a sweatshirt or whatever as they're on Teams. They don't feel like they can just be more real with each other. So I think we've noticed
a humanizing component to this. I feel like you feel much less guarded, I think, whenever everyone is in their homes. Like, I can tell all of you guys even are in your homes, and it makes you feel more at ease and comfortable.
And I think it's taken us a bit to get there, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, at first I was like, I'm not turning on my camera. Y'all are crazy.
Right? But I think it's taken us a minute to get there. And secondly, we've done video. Kristen reminded me of this. We did a video tour of our facility. So we can't have outside guests come in and tour our organization anymore. They can't go and see, okay, this is where my product will be in this warehouse. They can't, you know, meet the people that they typically would. That is part of our selling process. And we want people in our buildings.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing a virtual tour. We had the sales team, and my boss walked around a warehouse with a iPhone camera, and Chris and I did the editing too. They're like, "Oh, you've got the Mac. You can edit." I'm like,
You're like,
figure this out.
No, but I'll try.
I've edited like 4 videos in my life, but it turned out really well. Like it was a really good thing, and the client or the prospect is excited about it. They were happy to be able to see, you know, talk to or hear from some folks that they hadn't had a chance to. So
Yeah, Emily, I wonder if you would be able to, in some of the digital marketing you're doing to those niche, you know, to have your own pop-up virtual like trade show and do some of those things. Like, I think it'd be fun to maybe play with it and then like make your own trade show,
right.
so to speak. Because like the first ones in the industry to like be able to be creative, I think will like definitely, you know, put you ahead of the competition coming out of all this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So actually, a follow-up to that, what did your competitors do in their pivots? So like, if of course everyone's still checking what their competitors are up to, in your different industries, what were your competitors doing that you saw that either sparked a good idea for you to keep doing what you were doing, change what you were doing, anything like that? And I do want to hear from Dan and Bayard and Krista and Mary. I'm going to call all of you out. Talk for us.
What I've noticed is some kind of outlandish stuff, to be honest with you. Like certain people claim that Google's algorithm has changed for AdWords in terms of the crawler with COVID, and there should be certain mentions in long tail keywords and short tail keywords and trends in the crawler. Is not necessarily true. I feel like some people have been great and they've remained authentic and had authentic communications and tried to be honest with customers and have that reciprocal line of open communication, which I think is healthy. And then I've kind of noticed the opposite end of the spectrum, where there's sort of panic mongering and scare tactics to push product, which is the opposite school of thought to myself. So I think probably everyone in the group has noticed a little bit of both. But I think I'd like to be positive, or glass half full, and sort of air to say that a lot of people have some very authentic messaging and being sort of earnest on the front of their client base.
What just happened? We just lost you.
Oh, no.
There we go.
I'm still here. That's pretty much summarizes everything I have to say. I thought I just sort of said something no one agreed with. That's why it was quiet.
No, you just got muted for a second. Does anybody else have something to share in terms of what your competitors were doing and how they were addressing the situation versus how you were? Go for it, Kelly. Unmute somehow. There you go.
I was going to press it and then I knew you were too, and I didn't want to both do it. It's like when you try to pull the car door open at the same time.
Yes.
So Tennessee Oncology, we kind of look their way a lot when we're just trying to figure out how we can get ahead in the industry, because I hate to say competitor because cancer is the enemy here and not each other, but Tennessee Oncology is kind of our competitor, especially in Williamson County too. So they were starting to put out information about, so we had phases of like putting out COVID information, then focusing on telehealth, and they started doing that. We really ramped that up too. But the whole Safe Return initiative, they started putting out a bunch of emails about how it's safe to return and making sure people know what precautions they're taking. And so we filmed some spots, and I don't know if you've seen them, but they're on TV 50 times a day and on the radio of Jeff Balzer. And we did these ads and made sure to show the temperature taking stations and things like that, and talk about the actual initiatives that we're doing to make sure that they're safe. Because you need cancer treatment, but still our visits were down. As of last week, our visits were down 20%, which is crazy. So, so we spent probably our entire advertising budget on these ads, and it's working. So I'm glad we could get Dr. Balzer to do those, and we just quickly edited a few different spots that we have on several channels. So I think it's working well.
Yeah, that's great.
I think as a consumer, I was disappointed and felt like there was a huge opportunity, but I didn't see a lot of people that were communicating with me taking advantage of it. It felt like, I know we all got the same email. It felt like a cut and paste from every restaurant we'd ever been to, every store, every retailer, everybody that like, oh, I even forgot they existed. And the same, we're taking the precaution, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it felt like there was a great opportunity to stand out somehow, but everybody had this and I guess it was because it was serious and somber, and you couldn't really introduce a lot of personality into it, but it felt just like legalese that they were being consulted that you need to say this.
Yeah.
Did you see the letter that the CEO of Starbucks sent out, which would have been probably in March? And also Kroger. Those two I picked out and used as inspiration for our messaging, because I thought they hit a different chord. I thought that they gave enough information, but they were very real and transparent, and even acknowledging sort of the fear and the unknown, but also the confidence. And they were compassionate. I think that was the tone, was they were compassionate, not a form letter. So those might be something to look up.
Very good.
Yeah.
I bet Starbucks kind of learned a little bit months ahead of the rest of the country, right? Because they have operations in other parts of the world. And I'm not sure Kroger does either, but they may have been able to piece some stuff together and have a little bit of leg up on the rest of us, don't you think?
They may have been, because it was literally, I think it was our first mandatory stay home day that it came up in my feed, this letter from the CEO of Starbucks. So that was when we were just figuring out what the heck are we even doing? How do you work at home? We didn't even have Teams loaded onto everybody's computers yet and things like that. All of a sudden I got that letter, and that's what kind of launched what I thought was our next steps. So yeah, you might be right that they got that from Asia.
Yeah, definitely. What about any problems? Did anybody encounter problems whenever you pivoted to using more of those digital channels? Like, for example, cost of digital ads. Did that go up because everybody's competing and making higher bids? Did you experience that? Did you experience more or less reach with those? Anything like that? Did anyone do digital ads or social ads or anything like that?
We didn't.
You did not.
No, but Christina, I'm going to unmute you. Or Krista, you had mentioned a couple things that Kroger did. Would you like to share those with the crowd?
Yeah, sure. It was really more around the reopening phase, particularly for the retail market. Just since Kroger had stayed open that entire time, they were, I thought, very generous to the world of retail to say, we're just gonna be transparent and share what we experienced along with some of the pain points and what companies can do to sort of right their course and not make some of the same mistakes based off issues they'd had.
Yeah, that's true. I did notice Kroger was doing that. And I think there's also something to be said for that positive marketing too, to where everyone, of course, has the warm and fuzzies for them now because they were transparent about it and trying to help out everyone as opposed to just themselves. All right.
And you can just Google the blueprint. It's available online. It's public knowledge. So
yeah,
they publish several and continue to add to it.
Yeah, that's great. Can you drop actually a link to that in our chat window?
Sure.
And to wrap up, we've got one more minute left. Does anybody
Bayard had something that he wanted to mention?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to look at sort of where the positives came from, like where the numbers for anything that was an uptick. So it was funny in retail fashion industry, while everything else is trying to pivot online, and frankly, their supply chains are impacted as well as people are staying home, so they're not buying as much. But the one bright number was there was a 20% uptick in what they call above the waist. So if all the tops are being sold because people are doing the Zoom meetings, I guess, right? So that was in that,
but not something I ever would have thought about.
So there is an uptick there, and there is a also for the spaces in retail where you saw those shelves completely emptied of favorite brands of things. There were the sub brands all reporting upticks in their sales where their new customer percentages were over 40% because people were forced to try their brand. So that was an interesting uptake. And
I would be interested to see if those people who did jump from the main brands to the sub brands, if they stick with those sub brands moving forward.
I'd be interested in that too.
yes, I wonder how many will. So there's a test of brand loyalty ahead of us.
Yep.
I think as well. I also spoke with the winery Chateau Saint Michel in Washington State that has successfully pivoted now. More than 95% of their revenue and business is recovered, but it's all online. So they've done virtual tastings. Contrary to, I don't know what we were talking about earlier with direct mail, but direct mail is terrific at this time. If you have to deliver some kind of experience to somebody, you would normally do it in a trade show. Can you do it in direct mail? If it's possible, they're people just, bored to death sitting at home. Some of my favorite things so far have been like Heinz ketchup. Have you seen the Heinz ketchup puzzle? It's just a giant red
I
thing.
saw that. That's cool.
So there's a lot of creative stuff going on.
That's a good point. I actually read my junk mail last week because my roommate was like going to throw it away. It was a stack. I'm like, wait, did you see? That was a really good copy right there on that postcard. And she's like, what? Why are you reading the junk mail? I'm like, well.
I'm bored, that's why.
You're bored when.
Exactly.
You're a marketer when.
If you have a physical product, right now is a great time for direct mail. I just
sampling programs. And
sampling's
stuff like that.
perfect. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to ask everybody here: did anybody see the announcement this morning from Mr. Zuckerberg? Facebook Shops are open. So Facebook Shops is apparently the not marketplace. This is actual shops. So I don't know who's going to compete against Amazon or what they're going to do, but allow specific sellers to sell through. And he says, and then these will also be carried on Instagram and WhatsApp. And so Facebook Shops, anybody thinking about it?
Can you
I hadn't seen that.
I hadn't seen it. Yeah. Can you drop the link to that article in our chat window as well so everybody can have access to that?
I'll try and find it. I'm sure it's Googleable, but
Yeah.
I got an email. So
I will say I've fallen prey to twice now. I have bought products online that were served to me in my Facebook ads from retailers.
Yep.
And I'm like clicking through and buying. The next thing you know, I'm like totally falling for it every time. They're targeting me with stuff I like, and I'm clicking and buying. What the latest was Michael's, which I'm like, I'd rather just shop online. And
Yeah, this is interesting. I want to read more about this. Thank you. This says Facebook and Instagram roll out shops, turning business profiles into storefronts.
Yeah, and I think the critical thing here, absolutely critical, is not about, hey, it's a shop that's opening and it's a page you're gonna have to drive people to. But I think this is in the overall strategy. If you think about how Facebook has changed from likes and pages to engagement on groups, right? So if you're not doing groups during this time, when there's, people sitting at home bored reading their direct mail, and you should really, groups is the key to engaging, and now is the time to build up, I think, while people have, the free time and are sitting around.
Yeah, definitely.
Very true.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for today. We do have one more of these next week. So next Wednesday, same time, same place. You will get an email after this as well with a short survey link. So let us know how you liked this programming and should we continue doing it, things like that. We'll base our upcoming schedule off of what you guys recommend. So everybody have a great rest of your day. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.